So this is a presentation I gave in today's meeting with our trainers, where we like to go over different tools and ideas that we can use with our clients while we're coaching them. So in this case, we're talking about plating meals, which essentially just means how do we portion out what we're putting on our plates as we're eating. And to some people that may seem like it's no big deal, not too difficult to do, but to others this can become a topic of overwhelm. And so what we like to do is use the balanced plate reference for our clients whenever we're first trying to start to control for calories, control for portion sizes, that sort of thing. And this can be used for lots of different types of clients, which I'll cover later. So you can see here from our balanced plate reference, we've got a plate shape where half of the plate is fruits and vegetables, 25% is protein, 25% is carbohydrates, and a small amount of what we're consuming is coming from fat. So this reference is used just to answer the question, what do I eat? I've actually coached clients over the years in macro tracking, calorie tracking. We've used different hand sizes and shapes in order to track food group intake, but sometimes keeping track of all those individual things can really be overwhelming, especially if you're a little bit OCD or you just want to be accurate. So rather than being really nitty-gritty on a lot of these tracking methods, we instead use this type of reference, this type of paradigm, in order to have an easy reference. When we sit down at a meal, can we make this fit into this guideline as close as possible? It's not about it being a rule. It's not saying that if you eat a meal that doesn't exactly fit into these categories that it's not a good one. It just means that this is going to be the ideal that we're shooting for, and it's a great reference point or a good target to aim for as we're working on eating healthier meals. So if we break it down by category, we want to really prioritize our protein intake. And out of all macronutrients, even though they're all important, I would argue that protein is probably the most important macro that you will consume. You want to make sure that you're getting in a decent amount of protein per day. And for starters, for this reference guide, we'll say that we're going to get about 25% of our intake per meal from our protein. That's as far as just the actual volume on the plate. And keep in mind that good protein sources are going to be your meats, your leaner dairy products. Unfortunately, peanut butter is not a good source of protein, so just keep that in mind. But you want to get a lean source of protein when it comes to filling up a quarter of your plate. And the next one is going to be your carbohydrates. So same idea here. We want to have about a quarter of our plate come from carbohydrate sources, and that would be like your whole grains, rices, anything that's starchy, anything that's going to give you some energy, especially longer digesting, slower burning energy. That's going to be a great option for a quarter of your plate as well. And ideally, we would stay away from as many simple sugars as possible. Not to say that you can't have them, but when it comes to a quarter of your plate, we're looking for your more voluminous style carbohydrates. So ones that look more similar to what they looked like when they came out of the ground. Obviously, some processing is going to happen, but we want to have more whole foods, if that makes sense. And then half of your plate is going to come from fruits and vegetables. So any kind of vegetable fruits count. I know that some people demonize fruit for some reason, but they're not actually that high in carbohydrates. And there's lots and lots of fiber that comes from your fruit and your vegetables. So having a variety is always best. Eating the rainbow, I mean, that is exactly what you should be shooting for when it comes to fruits and vegetables, because that generally means that you're getting a variety of macronutrients, micronutrients, a variety of vitamins and minerals. And even though you do get some vitamins and minerals from your protein and from your carbohydrates, which are super important, your vegetables also make up a huge portion of that, vegetables and fruit. So try your best to get half of your plate full of fruits and vegetables. And just once again, remember, this is just a guideline. If you can't eat that much right out of the gate, just gradually work toward this kind of arrangement. And then we also want to keep in mind your fat. So if you need extra healthy fats in your diet, you can choose from sources such as avocados. You can eat nuts or nut butters, things like that. Your egg yolks are going to have some fat in them. Oftentimes, though, if you're eating maybe a fattier protein source, you'll often get enough fat from that source that you don't necessarily have to add in extra fats. Now, granted, those usually are going to be more saturated fats, and if we want to get fats that are a little bit on the healthier side, adding in healthy fats would be a good option as well. So just keep that in mind. Fats can really add up quickly because they're high in calories, so we're not going to add a ton of fat to each meal. Now, this is something that I showed to my trainers because we actually assign this in Trainerize. So Trainerize is the app that we use with our clients, and we use this on the back end to assign habits to each of our clients. So in this case, we're actually using that balanced plate reference and adding it to clients' dashes. So if we have a client who is working on properly portioning their meals, or they just need a guideline to shoot for, and we need to make sure that they're actually using this reference, then we would actually go in on the back end and we would assign this habit to their dash, and then every day that they use it, they would actually check it off on their dash, which sounds really simple, but it's actually life-changing for a lot of people to have really basic habits to shoot for. And you can also see that we have a variety of other options that we use for our habit coaching as well. And then last thing here, we also discussed how to use this with clients. So there's a couple of different options for using the balanced plate reference, and some of these might apply to you. If you are a fat loss type of person, you're looking for fat loss, the great thing about the balanced plate reference is it helps you control for calories. So obviously the size of the plate matters too, but whenever you're looking at portioning out your meals, if you're trying to look at it in these 4 separate categories, where you're trying to make 25% of your calories come from protein, which is usually going to be a heavier, harder to digest macronutrient, and then you're really shooting to get about half of your meal intake from fruits and vegetables, you really control for calories to a pretty extreme degree. So this can be great even without making massive changes, just trying to portion out correctly. This is a great start for fat loss. If you are a performance client where you are trying to run a marathon, or you're lifting heavy weights, you're a motocross racer, you are, these are just some examples of people we work with. If you are like a karate athlete, if you need, quicker bursts of energy, you would definitely need to have a wide variety of macronutrients and micronutrients in your diet to make sure that you're properly recovering, that you're keeping your muscle mass up. And then obviously with carbohydrates especially, those are super, super, super important for all athletes. And if you tend to be the type of person who skimps on your carbohydrate intake, using a guide like this balanced plate reference is great for making sure you're getting in adequate carbohydrates. And I would even argue that you should probably do a little bit more than a quarter of your plate for carbs if you're like a endurance athlete, maybe closer to your competition time. But in general, about a quarter of your plate is still going to be a great place to start. Now, if you are looking to build muscle, which most people think that they aren't, but in reality, the majority of humans need to build some muscle, especially aging women, but then also even men who are trying to become more muscular just for aesthetic reasons, or even women. Using this for muscle building is also a great approach. So this is going to make sure that you keep your protein and carb levels high enough so that you're getting in enough calories and enough protein. Those have to be prioritized if you're going to have adequate muscle growth. So carbohydrates are usually easier to consume, so they keep your calories up. Protein has to be high enough that it can help with muscle protein synthesis. So essentially, whenever muscles are broken down during the strength training process, the protein that you consume helps to rebuild those muscles so that they become larger and they hypertrophy. And then lastly, if we were dealing with a client who had low energy levels, who was struggling with recovery, who was prone to injury, we would also want to definitely look at the layout of their meals. Number one, the total amount that they're taking in really matters. But number two, the way that they're portioning out their meals, getting proper micronutrients again from their fruits and vegetables, but also getting an adequate protein, just because if you are experiencing lots of injuries, sometimes that can be due to a lack of protein in your system to help with your recovery, muscular recovery, and also connective tissue. So once again, super useful reference guide. And if you first subscribe to our newsletter, we actually send this guide out to everyone just for an easy, quick reference. But this can be super, super helpful. So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out.